Could this be a long-lost, chilling encounter with one of the most elusive beings on Earth? And if so, what other unknown creatures are hiding in our national parks? Welcome to Parks Unseen. These individual stories are based on reported eerie encounters with strange beings during the 1970s and 80s from park rangers across the country. And from my research, it seems like there was a pretty successful attempt to cover them up back in the day. But as we know, all truths come to light eventually, no matter how deep they may be buried. We know the former owner of these reports intended them to go public at some point, but the timing was never right. From what I can gather, he was afraid the world wasn't ready to know the truth about these creatures. As for me, I figure now is as good a time as any. If there are indeed monsters lurking in our national parks, people deserve to know about them. Pretending they don't exist isn't going to make us any safer out there. In fact, it's likely to do just the opposite. So without further ado, let's jump right into our report for the evening. Date: November 15th, 1973. Case ID number 64. Location: Yosemite National Park. Time: 7:15 a.m. Reporting Officer M. Thompson. Incident report reads: went to free an animal stuck in a trap and had an unusual encounter with species of unknown origin. Details of the encounter: Saturday, 5 a.m. A couple entered my station and reported a bobcat stuck in an illegal animal trap about 300 yards away from their campsite in the Upper Pines area. I took the catch-all pole and drove them back to their campsite so they could direct me to the animal. I could hear the desperate growls and cries from the animal in the distance, so I suggested they stay back as the bobcat may panic even more with several of us approaching it, and it could be a very dangerous situation. They pointed me in the general direction of the sighting, and it was about a 5-minute walk down the trail to the trapped animal. It wasn't hard to locate because of the distinct cries and a strong, pungent smell that got heavier the closer I got. This was not the first time I've released an animal from an illegal trap. It's become a more frequent encounter over the last year, around 4 to 5 by my count. These animal traps are large too. It does not seem like the intention of the person setting these traps is to capture small animals. They're hoping for bigger game. The bobcat paused. It struggled briefly when I was about 25 yards away from it. I think it could smell me, and it took a moment to register that I was in close proximity to it. I could see that the trap was clenched down on its front paw, and there was quite a bit of blood from it struggling to break free. After calculating the best way to get the catch-all around its neck and safely releasing the cat without it doing further damage to itself, I moved closer. It finally took notice of me and glanced my way for a moment before returning its attention to a ridge about 100 yards north of it. The bobcat seemed more scared of something beyond the ridge than me approaching it. The smell was now overwhelming. I figured the cat may have evacuated its bowels while being in a heightened state of panic, but the scent was different from the usual animal scat scent that I'm used to in my years working this park. This scent was a mix of wet fur, rotted meat, and skunk musk. It was in fact so strong I had a visceral reaction to it. I worked quickly to get the catch-all around its neck while it was still distracted by something just beyond the ridge. I began to hear faint rustlings and a strange growl coming from the ridgeline, and an uncanny feeling that I was being observed. My first inclination was a larger predator like a wolf or bear may have come for the trapped animal, as it was an easy target. I wasn't going to stick around long to figure that out, and certainly didn't want to put myself between a hungry predator and a potential meal. I also couldn't let the bobcat suffer, and I knew there was no way I was going to be able to get it back to my truck, so its best hope for survival was to release it and pray for it to take shelter. It took me about 5 minutes to pin the animal down and use my foot to apply enough pressure to the mechanism to pry the jaws of the trap open. Once I got the bobcat free from the trap, it squirmed and jumped around with such strength it was pulling me off my feet. I managed to loosen the catch-all loop in my grip, freeing the cat. Even with an injured paw, it managed to dart away at such a fast speed, you would think it wasn't injured at all. I took a moment to catch my breath, almost forgetting about the strange sounds in the distance that seemed to have died down. Whatever it was, all the commotion from the bobcat may have frightened it off. I scanned the surrounding area briefly, but it was hard to tell if something was in fact out there, even in the thinned-out tree line during the winter months. I needed to document the trap site and incident for my report, so I walked back to my truck to grab my camera and notebook. I told the campers to keep a watch out for any large predators, as the injured bobcat may have drawn them into the area, and they should be vigilant on their hikes and leaving any food out at night. I returned to the trap site, documented the incident in my notepad, and prepared to film a brief shot or two of the trap and area for a future record. I recently purchased an 8mm film camera for a family gathering and found that I enjoyed messing around with it. I thought I would bring it to work and maybe catch some wildlife on film. That's when the overwhelming smell returned and the sounds of something large moving up the ridgeline. Whatever was there before had returned, and by the sounds of its distinct snorting as it appeared over the ridgeline, I quickly realized it wasn't a bear or a wolf. What I encountered was a massive, upright figure covered in dark brown, matted hair, and from what I could estimate from the distance, it stood about 7 to 8 feet tall. It didn't move like any large mammal that I am aware of. It had a human-like gait but seemed more primate in nature. The creature, that's the best way I can describe it, paused at the ridgeline as it noticed me. We both stood motionless, observing each other for about a minute. My first instinct was to reach for my sidearm, but something told me that was not a good idea. Instead, I raised my hands in a non-threatening gesture. The creature briefly studied me before responding with a series of guttural, almost musical sounds, as if attempting to communicate or establish a connection. I don't know how to truly explain this, but my overwhelming feelings of terror softened as I stood frozen in my spot, staring at this creature. I got this sense that it didn't want to harm me, and I had no intention of harming it. It was curious, but not fearful. If anything, it had full command of the moment. I was so stunned by the encounter that it took me a moment to realize I was holding my film camera. As I slowly raised it to start filming, the creature turned and moved back over the ridgeline. I tracked it from a distance and filmed what I could of it before losing sight of it altogether. It was as if it just vanished into thin air. One moment it was there, then it wasn't. Unfortunately, the only proof I have of this encounter is a few brief moments on film. After staring into the thick woods for several minutes, hoping to catch one more glimpse of the creature, everything went quiet, almost like the sound was sucked out of the area. I'm not sure how long I actually stood there before returning to cleaning up the trap site and heading back to my office. I wasn't quite sure how to alert the campers of what I had seen, as I'm not sure what I saw myself. Ultimately, they felt a bit uneasy after everything that happened today and decided to head home. I don't blame them. One last note, I think I now know what these big animal traps may be trying to catch after this experience. I will do my best to search for more of these traps and remove them. This report is submitted for official documentation by Park Ranger M. Thompson of Yosemite National Park. Could Ranger Thompson's encounter have been with a Sasquatch, also known as Bigfoot? Sightings reported in Northern California and the Pacific Northwest were at their peak in the early 1970s. While experts and eyewitnesses were frequently given high-profile media coverage, the scientific community generally avoided lending credence to such fringe theories by refusing even to debate them. One exception to the rule was British primatologist John Napier, who was one of the first notable scientists to give serious attention to the Bigfoot Sasquatch phenomenon. In 1973, the same year of Ranger Thompson's reported encounter, Napier published the results of his findings in a book, Bigfoot, the Yeti and Sasquatch in Myth and Reality. His research included interviewing amateur investigators and purported eyewitnesses, visiting alleged Bigfoot sighting areas, studying the scant physical evidence, and screening the footage captured during the famous Patterson-Gimlin encounter, which had occurred 6 years earlier only 400 miles away in Bluff Creek, California, now known as Gateway to Bigfoot Country. Napier ultimately judged the evidence to be inconclusive. There was not enough hard proof to confirm to Napier that Bigfoot was a real creature. However, he found it difficult to entirely reject thousands of alleged tracks, scattered over 125,000 square miles, or to dismiss all the many hundreds of eyewitness accounts. Napier concluded, "I am convinced that Sasquatch exists, but whether it is all it is cracked up to be is another matter altogether. There must be something in Northwest America that needs explaining, and that something leaves man-like footprints." Napier judged the indirect evidence as compelling and intriguing enough that it couldn't be dismissed outright as unworthy of serious study. Was Ranger Thompson afraid to speculate in his report on the creature he encountered due to possible public ridicule? The idea of Bigfoot has never been widely accepted by the general public, even at the height of reported sightings, which may have given Ranger Thompson pause for claiming it to be the famous cryptid. For those of us that do believe, today there are several organizations dedicated to the research and investigation of Bigfoot sightings. The oldest and largest is the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, which was established in 1995. The BFRO provides a free database on their website, documenting reported sightings and encounters submitted from across North America, all of which have been investigated by researchers to determine credibility. What could these unorthodox professionals have determined? What conclusions might have been drawn? Had Ranger Thompson's report been uncovered sooner? We can only speculate what transpired that day based on this mysterious report and degraded footage. Considering the suboptimal conditions in which this film footage has been stored for over 50 years, the footage itself has clearly been impacted by the elements. However, it has held up relatively well enough for future preservation. Could we be dealing with actual lost archive footage hidden for decades? Or could this footage be a long-lost hoax tucked away in a box somewhere in hopes of it being discovered someday? We may never know the full story, as many of those involved refuse to talk or have moved on. What do you believe? Could we be dealing with a highly intelligent creature that has evolved and adapted throughout the years to the ever-growing world, pushing it deeper into uncharted territory, avoiding our ability to capture it with current technology? Or do we simply love this campfire monster myth and want the legend to remain just that? A legend, a story, an icon. Thank you for joining us on this expedition into the enigmatic realm of our national parks. Until next time, stay curious and keep your eyes open. In the wild, you never know what secrets may be lurking, waiting to be unveiled in the great expanse of parks unseen.